Thank you. How nice to see all of you here. I'm so pleased to be at, where am I? Portland. I've always loved Portland. I've been here several times. One of the times I was here was very meaningful. It was shooting Star Trek. We had an explosion, a planned explosion on the set. And somehow the explosion was bigger, and Leonard Nimoy and I were standing beside the explosion, and they should have cracked the doors, but they didn't. Anyway, the resulting explosion caused my ears to ring, and it never went away, and that's called tinnitus, ringing in the ears. A lot of musicians have it, and it drove me nuts. And I thought at one point, I can't stand it anymore. And, but I did, and I sought help in a variety of places. And finally, I ended up here, where the American Tinnitus Association is situated. So a lot of people have tinnitus in one form or another. Musicians, a lot of the military have it from the loud explosions. And Leonard has it. But I have it to an extreme degree. In any case, I came to Portland for what help they could give me, and it was here that a doctor talking to a patient who had tinnitus, standing beside a fountain where the water was gushing out, realized that the ambient noise of the fountain soothed the noise inside the patient's head. But in fact, the doctor also had tinnitus, who told me later, he said it doesn't bother him only when he's talking about it. That was his job. So he heard it all the time, and it was awful for him. Imagine, because once you become habituated to the ringing, you really don't hear it unless, like right now, I'm hearing it because I'm talking about it. Imagine if that's your job. Poor man. So it was here that with earphones on, that the technicians tried to find the sequence of sound that's inside my head, what the timbre is, how loud it is, and what the quality of sound, and they did reach it. And the moment they hit it, it was like a tuning fork, and I burst into tears because somebody had reached inside my head to understand, essentially, what it was I was hearing. And from that moment on, you don't get better on it, but you become habituated to the point where you accept the fact that there's a ringing in your ears, but it's not going to kill you. The sadness is you never hear a silent night again, and sometimes somebody will say, "Did you hear the crickets?" And that's just in the area of my tinnitus. So crickets and the silence of the night, and listening to something that's absolutely silent is beyond my ability. On the other hand, I became the American Tinnitus Association's spokesman for a while, and I was soliciting funds for research. Apparently, the mechanics of tinnitus is inside your ear, there are grass-like hairs called cilia, and the variation in ear pressure from your eardrums moves the cilia like grass. And those hairs are tied to nerves which go to your brain. And when you're born, you have what they've begun to call a code of silence. Like when you see things, when you're a baby, you see things upside down, but your brain rearranges it. So your brain now recognizes a code of silence. But when the cilia are harmed or deadened, that code of silence is broken, and your head is hearing noise that doesn't exist. So they're looking into research for it, and they look for funds, and I've been, in the past, soliciting funds for them. And I would get a hearing doctor to give me patients. This is not right of them to do, but it was, we did it. So I would cold call people all over the country saying, hello, I'm William Shatner. Who? Yeah. Can you hear me? And I would solicit funds, and it's an interesting thing, because I got the names of powerful people who had the money to give for research. So these are arrogant people who've made a success of it, and the moment we talk about tinnitus, suddenly this guy is saying, well, I can't, tinnitus, and suddenly the voice changes, because this is the bottom of their life. And they say, yes, no, I hear it all the time, I don't know what to do. Well, we're trying to do research, if you could contribute funds. So I said this to a guy, I said, yes, no, I will, I'm going to sell some stock, call me next week, I'll give you $50,000. Following week, I called, and his wife answered, and he had committed suicide because of the sound. In that time, I've talked down people who've been hysterical with fear and with anxiety, as I was, because they think the sound will never go away. It doesn't, but you become used to it. And I've talked people down from suicide who have felt so badly about their tinnitus, and I present myself as an example of someone who felt that way, but acquired habituation. This water thing that the doctor discovered, he then made what looked like hearing aids, but it caused white sound. So he would vary the pitch, and is what you hear. And if you wear them long enough, they said 8, 10, 12 hours a day. I wore them for 24 hours a day. I slept with them. And within about 3 months, because they're raised to a level just below your tinnitus. And then within 3 months, I began to become accustomed to it. And now, in those days, they would say, what percentage of the tinnitus affects your life? And I would put down 90% of my life as tinnitus. Now, I don't even think of it, 1%. And that's the change that can be affected. And but you know, the lesson really is that we human beings become habituated to anything. So if there's an illness or some part of your body doesn't work as well as it did, if there's some chronic pain, eventually your body adjusts and you become accustomed. It's a really important lesson, not only for physical things that are wrong, but for conditions that are wrong. You can become accustomed to anything in life. The opposite shouldn't happen. We shouldn't become accustomed to the degradation of our natural world. We shouldn't become accustomed to bad government. We've got to be careful that habituation doesn't work against us, but in this case, in tinnitus, it works for us. I just thought I'd talk about that for a second. Thank you. So, I don't know what you want to hear from me, so I'll take questions. Are we equipped for questions, are we? Is there a voice of authority? No, I mean, only authoritative voice. Is there a microphone for?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, good. Hold it just a second. I want to describe what I just did this last couple of weeks. 2 years ago, I opened on Broadway in a one-man show. And I did, I think, a couple of months on Broadway, limited run, and then I went on tour. And I toured 40 cities last year doing this one-man show. I'm not sure whether I came to Portland or not. And then last 2 weeks, I've done 7 more shows. And so I left Los Angeles, and it's all a jumble of where I went, but I know I went to Las Vegas, and I know I went to Florida, and I know I went to somewhere. Anyway, this past few days, I went to Las Vegas, played a huge theater in Las Vegas, went to Cedar Rapids in the Midwest, went to New Bedford through Boston, and then from Boston to Seattle to here, all within about 4 days. And when I looked at the schedule, I thought, there's no way I'm going to make it to Portland with all the storms in the midwinter, all those short flights to Chicago, from Chicago to Cedar Rapids to Chicago, Chicago to Boston. But I couldn't. I didn't miss a minute. I arrived yesterday right on time. It was guidance. There was something going on because the storms hit last week. The storms are there now. I was in Texas last week. Beautiful weather. There's snowed under this week. So I've been lucky and got here by a miracle. So I'm so grateful to be here. So ask me a question, and then I'll sort of ramble on and try to give you an answer.
I'm getting married in the next month.
You're what?
I'm getting married in the next
You're
month.
newly married?
No, getting married.
You're getting married?
Yes.
Okay, you want me to advise you?
I wanted to know your best marriage advice.
My best marriage advice. Stop! Oh, no, I've been married enough to know what's going on. You know that it's very interesting that you should ask that question because the gentleman who is producing these shows, these Comic-Cons, John's married to a beautiful lady who happens to be a psychiatrist who does marriage counsel. Okay?
Give me her number.
What?
You should give me her number.
I missed that.
You should give me her number. Premarital counseling.
You need count? No. Well, whatever you said, part of what my advice is, yes, you were right there.
Oh.
The things you gotta watch out for, she was saying, as a marriage counselor, is disrespect. And I think there are four things that she was mentioning. But I think it all comes from that central one, which is you disrespect your partner. You don't know what you're talking about. How many times? Yeah, honey, sit down. Don't do that. Respect what your partner says, even if it makes no sense at all. Be careful about disrespect. Next question. I sound like I know what I'm talking about. I don't know. Into the microphone. Do you got a mic there? Passing it on.
Mr. Shatner, you've had an incredibly prolific career in both film and television over the decades. During that time, you played a lot of iconic roles. What was your most favorite to portray and why?
Well, my favorite role. I guess people do think that way. Oh, I had a favorite back in '65. Too bad you missed it because it was my favorite. You know, an actor brings themselves to the role. And some actors, we call it phone it in. They just say the words. Some other actors wish to encompass, no matter what it is, encompass the whole thing. Whether it's one word, one line, or a gigantic role. To incorporate yourself in those words. And your approach to the words changes as you get older. You bring more experience, you bring your changes. Entropy. Everything is changing all the time. You don't realize it, but since you've asked that question, you've changed. And from youth to age, you're changing. And that change is what you bring to those roles. So what you might do with something when you're 20 is not something you would do when you're 50. But at that moment that you're doing it, you're encompassing it all. That's a long-winded way of saying everything I did was my favorite at the moment. And what I did last is my favorite. So I'm trying to embody an answer to your question, and right now, that's my favorite thing. Holy cats, what a guy.
Mr. Shatner, when the TV series Enterprise was in production, there was an attempt made by you and some writing partners to have you do a guest shot in that show. I'm curious to know what was your story idea and what was the process of pitching that story idea to the studio?
To the series Enterprise?
The series that was Scott Bakula.
Let's go back to that. I pitched an idea. I wonder where you heard that. On Twitter? Maybe I Twittered it. I don't recall me suggesting an idea. I've gotten to know Scott over, well, I made a documentary with him. I don't know whether you've seen it. I fall in love with all those guys. I mean, all the guys and girls. The effect of doing a documentary. I'm going to answer your question because there's actually no answer. I have no recollection of pitching an idea. I did, but I'll tell you what. Don't let me forget. I did pitch something, or I've got a pitch in mind. Don't let me forget the addendum to this monologue I'm about to begin. I've been doing documentaries. So I started with the captains, I think, and then I've done 10 documentaries, mostly in the science fiction area, and found some fascinating things, and found that doing a documentary, the likes of which I've been doing, is like writing a story, a detective story, where you have to go and find the facts. And as you find the facts, it alters what you said before, only in this case it's against the policeman who would go back to the witness. I sort of can't go back. So I'm stuck knowing more now than I did yesterday, but I can't go back. So I found that exploring each one of these captains the way I did in conversation, sort of asking them about their life and what they loved and what they liked and what they hated and what they did and what they wanted and what effects were on them, what affected their lives. Because I was their peer and because they knew I was not there to disparage them or to make fun of them or to harm them in any way. I was there just to explore. They explored with me and they engaged me in conversation. So I got to know them. I got to know the actors of Star Trek better than, I made friends with them within days. They became some of my best buddies. And so Scott Bakula, I feel the same way. He comes up to my house for football and things like that. It's great. So I do not recollect pitching anything to Enterprise, but some months ago, I was in front of a group of people like this, and somebody asked me, why don't I do the half-hour comedy, the Big Bang Theory. So I said, it's a half-hour series, I don't do so. But, I've been asked that a number of times. I said, how many people, I asked this audience, how many people would like to see me on the Big Bang Theory?
Everybody! Woo!
But they did even more. here. Look, you're sitting there, so I guess you're. Thank you. The half a dozen of you that stood up right here. So, okay. So that it was like on a Sunday. So on Monday morning, I called the executive office of the Big Bang Theory, Chuck Lorre, and I met him. So I said, can I speak to Chuck Lorre? Who's William Shatner? Oh, Shatner. There's a lot of waiting around, scurrying, and I hear footsteps and laughter. And Chuck Lorre comes up. He says, yeah, Bill Shatner. Oh, hi, Bill. I said, I just stood in front of an audience. And they stood up and cheered because I said, would you like to say, so Chuck, do you want to write a story for me? He said, oh my God, I'm putting the phone down and I'm going into the writer's room right now. Fantastic. Write a good story because, what's his name, the comic, won an Emmy, was it Casper? Was it?
Bob Newhart.
Bob Newhart. So Bob Newhart, apparently, I didn't see it. Did you guys see it?
Yeah.
Was it wonderful?
Oh, yeah.
So I said, oh, that was together. It was so good. So I said,
times.
do something like with Newhart. And I'd love to play something really meaningful that happened. He says, great. So 2-3 months go by. I wonder what happened to Chuck Lorre. He calls. He says, we got something. You come on. Your I've forgotten exactly what it was. Anyway, it was an interesting idea, but it was kind of, could have been mocking. I said, but I don't want it to be mocking. No mocking. We're going to treat it beautifully. And I said, fine. And my agents then talked to their agents. And they didn't have the money. So I'm not going to do it. Well, you can't just do it for less than what you get. Do you know what I mean? No, but because actors have a price. Like, you get so much an hour, and you want to get a job, and they say, well, what's your fee? And if you lower your fee, that's your fee. So it's the same with actors. This is what I get from, oh, well, we don't pay that. Oh. And so that's where we are. I wish I could have done it, but then I didn't want to. Write a letter.
Send money.
I never saw Big Bang Theory until it looked like I was going to be on it. And I started watching it. It's terrific.
Yeah.
I would really like to do it now. Doggone it. What do you do? Oh, your sign language. What do you do with your hands up in the air? Oh, you got a camera. Are you filming me? Oh, you're filming the audience. I'll bet you turn it this way every so often. Next question.
I don't really have a question, but I just wanted to say that the roast to William Shatner, your roast on Comedy Central, is still the best roast that they've made.
I couldn't quite understand what you said, but I'm so glad everybody applauded. Because it must be positive, right? Nothing harmful there? Was it good? What did you say?
All right, so your roast on Comedy Central,
Oh, celebrity roast.
your celebrity roast on Comedy Central was the best that Comedy Central has produced so far, and your response at the end that you don't care what anybody thinks because you're William Shatner, because Star Trek changed the world, and we're all thankful for everything you do with us.
Give me a question. That's it?
I'm a huge fan of Miss Congeniality movies. Which one was your favorite?
You like Miss Congeniality?
Yeah.
And what is my favorite?
Yeah.
My favorite is Miss Congeniality. How can I go against your thing? That was so much fun. She is so wonderful. Sandra Bullock's a wonderful.
What would he do without us?
Sandra Bullock is.
He needs a guy.
And I'm so glad she won the award and all that. Have you guys seen the movie?
Yeah.
See, I'm with most of the crowd. I haven't seen it. But actors, yeah, they belong to the association called the Academy, and we get the discs of the movie as a prerogative belonging to the Academy. And so we can get 20, 30, 40 discs of all the movies. Like, you can play them. And that's what I'm supposed to do, to vote. I never have time to watch it. I haven't been to a movie theater in 3 or 4 years. I haven't been to a movie. So I've got DirecTV, and we put on the old movies, and eventually all these movies, 3 years later, come up on the 500 channel, and that's when I see them. And I go around and say, did you see? Yeah, I was there 3 years ago.
I do that.
Should have voted for that movie. I'm just busy, I guess, trying to get on the big factory.
Well, thank you so much for coming to Portland, by the way, in your busy schedule. And I want to also thank you for my 15 minutes of fame on living in TV land. You told me to get a life. And since then, no.
Because what are you doing here? What's your question? Before I answer it, before you ask it.
And my wife loved it, so.
What?
She hit her head, but she still loved it.
Okay.
Well, my question was, I heard there was talks with Abrams to get you in the last Star Trek.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
He couldn't meet my price.
Yeah.
He said, please be in it, Bill. I said, no, you can't pay my price. No, what are you going to do with old Captain Kirk? I don't know. But Get a Life. Get a Life, which was a sketch some years ago, and a lot of people responded with laughter, and it was meant to be a laugh. So I wrote a book on why you guys are here. And I did a lot of research on it, and I would go around in a mask, you know, and do a voice, say, hey, what are you doing here? And they say, is that you, Shatner? So I did research on why people come to these Comic-Cons, these conventions, Star Trek conventions, whatever. And I met all kinds of wonderful, interesting people. Like what comes to mind is a young man who was so shy that he couldn't carry on a conversation. But he had a cat that he dressed up as Captain Kirk. When he had a cat in his hand, he was the most social, verbal person you could imagine. Without the cat, it was amazing. I met a lady who had multiple personalities. Every single one of them from Star Trek. So, the conclusion I came to in my book was that you all come to see each other, old friends. Hey, look who's here, I've seen you again. And it's a really neat social thing that happened. That was the conclusion of the book. So when as I'm doing my documentaries, I thought I'd do a documentary using the basis of the book, this time on film. So now I went around, and I got all kinds of interesting people, whole families that would dress up and come, people from Japan that wore their uniform, getting on the plane in Japan, flying the whole way here, and marvelous, wonderful people having a great time. And I thought, well, I guess it's all about coming to see each other. When all of a sudden, I landed into a whole theory that absolutely makes sense. And that is, there's a mythological thing that's going on here. Science fiction is providing a mythology for us as a possible explanation of what's going on out there, because nobody knows. So, do aliens exist, and what do they look like, and how do they fly, and do they come here? How would we react if we saw, and all the science fiction mysteries and marvelous imaginations. So we're part of a mythology, and part of being here is part of the ritual of the mythology, getting the pictures and signing the autographs and coming in across. It's all part of a group of people indulging in a ritual that is mythological. So we're all having fun, and at the same time, if you let your mind explore the science fiction universe, it offers all kinds of magic and mysterious pleasures. Thank you very much, everybody. It's a pleasure.